Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Test Automation Week. The main sessions of CypressConf may be behind us, but we're not done yet. The last 2 days gave us ideas and inspiration. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves and put that theory into practice. Before we get started, just a few quick reminders. Each session today and tomorrow has its own access link. You'll find those in the confirmation email you received when you registered. All of these sessions, just like the main CypressConf sessions, are being recorded and will be available on the Cypress YouTube channel once the conference wraps. And yes, that swag giveaway is still going strong. Here's how it works. Every LinkedIn post through the end of this week counts towards an entry. One post, one entry. And all you have to do is tag Cypress.io and use the hashtag CypressConf25 or 2025, either works, for your chance to win the Cypress Swag prize pack. 3 winners are going to be accepted and they'll hear from us next week. Of course, we'll do an announcement on socials to give them a little bit of recognition. So go ahead, make those posts. Tell us what you think about the lightning talks and the workshops, and maybe get yourself some swag. All right, it is time to kick things off with our first lightning talk of Test Automation Week. Over the past 2 days of digging into various elements of quality intelligence, you may be asking yourself, how can you turn those ideas into everyday habits on your team? Well, our first speaker, Jacob Clarke, engineering manager at HyperAct, is here to answer that question in a session called Scaling Software Quality Through Collaborative Programming Practices. His approach is equal parts mindset and method. So a perfect bridge to turn that theory into action. Now, he is going to be joining us via recorded session, which I am going to be hitting play on in just a moment. So enjoy the session. I'm going to jump off stage, share screen, and then you'll see it start in just a second.
Hey everyone, my name is Jacob Clarke. I'm the Director of Engineering at HyperAct, a product engineering consultancy based in the UK. We specialize in helping startups, scale-ups, enterprises, and government organizations deliver valuable outcomes by solving real user needs across a variety of ways of working, from product engineering to modern product operating models, and always embodying engineering best practices at the heart of everything that we do. Today, I'm going to be talking about how we can scale software quality through collaborative programming practices, and more importantly, why pairing, mobbing, and shared ownership are reshaping how we test and ship software. I want to start with a familiar story, somewhere we've probably all been at some part of our career. You're deep in the code base, you know the domain inside out, and suddenly a bug appears. Maybe you notice it on a metrics dashboard, or maybe you notice it in the logging system, but it's Friday, and you know this is potentially going to be impacting revenue. You're already in the code base, and you know that the bug is likely in the checkout flow. And you think, well, this isn't going to be a big deal. It's going to be a small fix. Maybe it's a one-line change or a conflict tweak. The good news is you've also got a Cypress test suite, so you're feeling really confident. You code the fix, you push it, you get a quick review from one of the other engineers on the team, the tests are green, and you ship it. It hits production, and you notice revenue starts to drop on the dashboards on Google Analytics or wherever you track your revenue. You realize you've broken the entirety of the checkout experience, and it's now 100% worse than it was before. The test didn't fail. Everything went green. You got that pull request from the other engineer. So you can't understand what went wrong, but we know that quality has failed us here. Our quality assurance processes have failed us. So the team get together the next day and they start to say to themselves, after you've, of course, fixed the problem, how on earth did this happen? And the same answers come up. QA was stretched thin. The automation suite was green. The edge case was never tested. And so the action becomes, well, we'll just add the missing test. That was the root cause, that we didn't have a test. But that is not the root cause. The root cause of these issues is that the developer was working in isolation. They didn't have the time or the culture to validate assumptions with a tester or a peer. They placed too much faith in the automation suite. The problem wasn't tests or tooling, it was solo work on a critical system. It was isolation. But what if we baked quality in? Imagine a team where the culture of the team was that developers never worked alone. They're pairing, ideally with another engineer or a tester. And together, whilst they're pairing, they discuss assumptions. They write tests before the feature is built. They review logic in real time. When you work this way, defects don't appear later because they never get that far into the system. And the data tells us that pair programming cuts defect rates by 62%. A 14-month industry study compared solo versus pair programming, and it found that solo development averaged 3.42 defects per module, and pair programming averaged just 1.28 defects per module. That's a 62% reduction in escape defects. So when you think about all of those flaky tests, debugging cycles, and regressions, the value becomes clear. Collaboration reduces defects at the source. Quality is team sport. Too often, teams treat testers like goalkeepers, the last line of defense. But we know that great teams play upfield. They win the ball before it even reaches the goal. And in software, quality is a team sport. And collaborative programming is how we play that sport well. So what is collaborative programming? What is pair programming? It is often more than just two people at one keyboard. There are a myriad of methodologies and ways that we can go about programming collaboratively. The most obvious and the most implemented method is pair programming. Two people coding together, swapping roles regularly between the driver who is writing the code and the navigator who is thinking through the problems and instructing the driver on where to go and what to do next. And then we have ensemble programming, often known as mob programming as well. And this is where the entire team, product owners, quality assurance folks, programmers, works on a problem at a time. They rotate who types, who navigates, who thinks strategically. They discuss, they design, and they decide together. This brings diversity of thought, which we know leads to better outcomes, and it reinforces shared ownership of quality and also the shared understanding too. Does it work? Yes, it does. Industry research tells us that these ways of working are critical for teams to achieve fewer production bugs, faster onboarding, lower flake rates for Cypress test suites, and more resilient and maintainable code. Quality is not only about tooling anymore, it comes from collaboration, from the way that we build together. And this is particularly important when it matters most. I'm not suggesting that every team should go out there right now and implement our mandate that two people must write every single line of code that lands to production. This is definitely not the optimal use case. There will be times where the risk is low that it is fine for one developer to go and ship some code, as long as we have the guardrails and the methods in place to regulate that. But in complex environments, collaboration becomes essential. In regulated domains, high-risk systems, if the team is required to move at fast pace, you can't rely on solo work and post hoc tests to catch every issue. When the cost of failure is high, you need more brains on the problem and not fewer. So how do we know this works? The DORA metrics show us what healthy delivery looks like. And DORA was the result of the Accelerate book, which was put together by folks who'd led a lot of industry research to understand how high-performing teams operate and what we can measure to determine whether a team is or is not high-performing. And we can see through DORA metrics that when teams work this way, they achieve lower change failure rates, they achieve shorter mean time to recovery, and they achieve more frequent, safer deployments. And as a result of all this, far fewer broken pipelines and an improvement overall of the software quality and the ownership of that quality at its heart. The SPACE framework, which adds another dimension to this, also tells us that satisfaction improves when testers are involved early in work, performance increases as test ownership spreads, collaboration becomes embedded in day-to-day work, and efficiency rises as context sharing reduces rework. And you can go and try these ways of working with your team right now, start to measure your test flake data, your team sentiment, and you will notice the shift is highly measurable. So how do we start? How do we do this today? So I don't suggest here that you try to change everything at once and you implement a blanket rule of collaborative programming. That isn't going to lead to a good outcome or a good culture. You have to start small. Pick a critical path or a flaky test and pair on fixing or improving it. Pair a developer with a tester to extend code coverage together. Use mobbing to triage complex bugs. Rotate pairs weekly to share knowledge, and start to measure the impact of those changes. Our bug rates going down, our tests becoming more meaningful, is morale improving, and then compound and compound on these changes as you finally get to the place where you want to be. We have to start redefining the tester's role. Testers are not gatekeepers. They are accelerators of the team. They are subject matter experts in risk, coverage, and system behavior. When testers pair with developers, developers learn how to test meaningfully, edge cases are caught earlier, and automation coverage improves in quality, not just quantity. And then testers gain back time for higher value testing. They start to be able to focus more on exploratory accessibility, chaos, and business critical flows where automation is complex to achieve or expensive. So from my perspective here is, shift left is dead as a concept. Instead, we should be focusing on shifting together. Shifting testing earlier is just simply not enough. If we still continue to work on silos, we still miss the bigger picture. Instead, we should be pairing early on feature design and test coverage, benefiting from that diversity of knowledge and that diversity of context and understanding, so that as we think about what we're bringing to market, we already have far more robust and well thought out solutions before even a single line of code is written. We should have shared Cypress and test ownership across roles. It should not be the testers or the developers' role to write tests. We should be building that capability across the whole team and even externally to the team as well. Those tests are not the golden master assertion of quality in the system. Instead, they are an artifact of our own shared understanding and assurance of quality throughout the whole team. They provide a safety net, yes, but really they are our artifact of understanding. And really, we need to build a culture within the team where quality is not delegated, but co-created. And quality is such a broad and vast subject that we do truly need every single person in that system to be contributing into. And quality starts from the moment a feature or an outcome is thought up, and then finally when it is delivered into the customer's hands. And it never stops. It is a continuous thing that we are evaluating and better understanding as time goes on. It is really, really critical that we see testing and quality assurance as a whole team ownership. And yes, teams might have dedicated testers or quality assurance folks within the team, and we should start seeing their roles as folks who are champions and domain experts of quality. And we should be freeing them up and letting them focus on the highest value quality assurance work that we possibly can in the areas that are complex or expensive to automate. And this is the true value, of course, that quality assurance subject matter experts bring to the table. And we should free them from having to focus instead on gatekeeping or just testing individual features and tickets that come through. Our quality assurance experts should be focusing on outcomes and our users and assuring the holistic process of building software. Thank you very much for listening to my lightning talk. Again, my name is Jacob Clarke. You can find me on LinkedIn / I'm Jacob Clarke, or you can check us out on the web as well at hyperact.co.uk. Hope you have a fantastic rest of the conference and catch everybody soon. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. That was a really energizing way to kick off Test Automation Week with a fresh reminder that building better software, it's not just a process, it's a practice that takes thought and attention. We are going to be heading next into our workshops. Each of those workshops are beginning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And remember that each one has its own session link. So you will have received that session link in your registration emails. I believe it also adds some calendar invites for you. So you have plenty of ways to enter into the session. As a reminder, the ones that we have on the docket for today are Slack and Roll CI/CD pipelines with GitHub Actions, and that's coming to us from Tanya Sahini. We also have Advocate for Quality within your company. That is coming to us from Peter Fuldazi. Operationalizing Quality with Data That Matters, coming to us from Dan Johansson. And Next Level Cypress, How PsyPrompt Fits into Your Testing Workflow with Eric Swanson. All of these workshops are being recorded and will be available on YouTube after the event. And don't forget that swag giveaway. It's still open and going on through the end of the week. So every post on LinkedIn, get you an entry, tag the hashtag CypressConf 2025 or 25, and Cypress.io. Every post gets you in that swag giveaway. So grab your session link, get settled in, and we'll see you in your chosen workshop at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Thanks, folks.